What's up, guys? Our Wrestling Podcast back at you with another episode. This is Dave Vicious along with Jess, the Total Package, Craig, the British Bulldog,
Hey,
Nature
what's
Boy
up?
Joe, and Cuz, bringing you our perspective on the world of professional wrestling. No inside sources, no ties to the industry, just stories from the diehards, sharing opinions with you. Can someone feed me today's topic?
My child generation era, aka the new
Hey,
generation
Cuz,
era.
what generation is that, buddy?
New generation, of course.
The way it did. We'll get into it in just a second. For audio fans, give us a listen on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and Google Podcast, or watch our videos on YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel. On social media, can you do us a solid and give us a follow on Instagram or Twitter at O.W.P 2019 or on Facebook Meta at Our Wrestling Podcast. Joe, you remember this era?
man.
What stands out to you before we get into
Yeah,
it?
Joe.
I mean, before
Joe.
we really get into it, I was trying to think of like how to think about it
Yes,
like, in
right.
terms of like now or in the reverse.
Oh, like what you
In
thought
the
about
reverse-
it now versus
but, like,
when you were
I
a
mean,
kid watching
to think about it, to think about it like as it happened right now, it seemed like it was a desperation era.
Yeah.
You know, it was desperation. It was holy shit. What do we do without Hogan? What are we going to do
now,
without
right?
Hogan? How do we proceed? And Vince kind of like grasping at straws and finding some things that like were legitimate. Finding Bret Hart, finding Shawn Michaels in both its pros and cons of finding Shawn Michaels. I think more cons than anything, but like, but finding Bret Hart, and then finding some of these new stars, finding Diesel, finding Razor Ramon, and finding, and to a certain extent, struggling for years during the new generation, but the Owen Hart, the Bret Harts, the Owen Harts, the Razor Ramones and Diesels that came out of it, pretty significant. That's what I remember.
I think you said it perfect, Joe, when Dave was addressing Cuz earlier, and Cuz is like I pretty much, this was like his 80s basically. He's like he grew up during this.
Yeah.
Like, Cuz, you're in the minority in the sense that like there's a smaller audience that got hooked in the early mid 90s than did in the 80s, because the 80s was a boom period. And then it started shrinking down, and then by like 91, 92, the WWF was in total turmoil because of the steroid scandal and then the sexual assault scandal that was also going on, and the Donahue segments and everything else, and the current affair segments and all that. And so Vince was hurt, and then so he had to pull away from superstars that were obviously on the gas, like for the most part of their career, but also they were aging on top of that. So Hogan was getting super old. He was starting to get booed in like 1992 on live TV. Hogan would get booed. And I, as a fan, I look back, we talked about it in past podcasts. I think Joe did talk about it. When you look at things with 2022 eyes, you kind of appreciate them more than you did. And when I was a fan growing up in the early 90s, I was still like junior high school, and I hated the new generation era. And because
Hated it.
I grew up on the 80s, and then Joe introduced me to Crockett Promotions. And so like I grew up on Hogan and Flair and the Road Warriors and Savage and all the larger than life characters. I had a hard time accepting the new generation because Vince in a year's span. So think about this. Just do Royal Rumble to Royal Rumble. Royal Rumble 1992. You can name all the big names in the wrestling history. You can name Flair, Piper, Jake the Snake, Hogan, The Undertaker, Savage, British Bulldog, so many massive names were on. You go to Royal Rumble 93 and it's a completely different roster. You started uncovering these guys that I did not appreciate at the time, but now I look back, I'm like, that generation had to happen before the Attitude Era.
didn't appreciate
it.
Well done, Jess?
Yeah.
Everything is like, so Joe, you did nail it perfect, but I hated the new generation era when I was living through it.
You had to
But I
groom the
look back
guys
now and I'm like, all that stuff absolutely 100% had to have happened for everything else to go.
You had to groom the
93 to
guys.
90
had to have took
90
WCW
93
had
to
steal Hogan
95
and
like
Savage,
absolute bored me to tears, I mean, for the most part. Like, I mean, there were some great matches, but I mean, even Vince himself, there's the story of Vince going to Ric Flair in late 92 late 92 or late 93 and saying, we're going in a different direction. I'm gonna release you for, go a different way. Go back to WCW.
And then he put the title abruptly on Brett in like
then,
October of '92,
like,
and it was just like
abruptly
a whole
put it
different
on
world.
Brett, and then it was off to the races. And you look at sales, you look at ticket sales, you look at box office, you look at pay-per-views, everything's down. Is that New Generation's fault? Is it Bret Hart's fault? Is it Shawn Michaels' fault? Is it anybody of those guys' fault? Hard to say.
He's got it turned over. And just look at this. Flair's getting up. And he's trying to detract the referee, but he didn't. Oh, he gave up. We've seen history made. Let's get the official word.
Hard to say. Could just be that the business was down and that there was a lack of interest.
Which I think, looking back now, that was correct.
And with Hogan, I think we can all agree it wasn't about like the actual wrestling. It was about the storyline. It was about the drama, the charisma of that particular persona. Yeah. And with the New Generation, you had to go into a new like segment of wrestling, which was, we got to focus on the work. Like, all we have is hardcore fans. We don't have casual fans at this point. All we have is hardcore fans. So we have to put the belt on a guy that is a worker. We have to have good matches. We have to like try to sell the product on not storyline per se of
wrestling,
larger than life Hercules versus monsters. Yeah. We have to look it on like, they almost had to go like a territory style of, well, is this a good, we have to actually put on a good match.
In the early 90s, WWF's their image had taken a beating. Steroid scandal had rocked the promotion. And even though Vince McMahon was acquitted, the press had really greatly damaged his business. So it's time to say goodbye to the main attractions like Hulk Hogan. He's leaving the WWF anyway. They were definitely not on good terms. I'm pretty sure Hogan even testified against him during the trial. And it was just bad blood all around. And it was like, anybody who's jacked up beyond 270 probably has to go. Really, when you really think about it, and this became the time of the, if you even can call them middleweights, because even these middleweights were heavyweights by boxing standards. I mean, Bret Hart's a good 230, 240 easily. Yeah. But those kind of weight classes start to dominate the WWF. And my brother Owen, right? So it was time for a new generation to take the stage, and that became the New Generation era that we're going to talk about, and those main wrestlers today. And that's the debut of Monday Night Raw in 1993, January. So it's a year back, but the New Generation era kind of takes place where you really start to see that take hold in 1994, because there's still a couple of swole guys that have to work their way out. And then you purely get into these, what I'd call wrestling middleweights. They're heavyweights on a boxing scale, but they're middleweights by wrestling standards that are starting to take over wrestling as we know it. Top star number one, it's pretty obvious who it is. We're talking about Bret the Hitman Hart. The
shitty trend, in my opinion, where before a person was ready, they won the world title, and then he recrowned him. Like, Roman Reigns is what, like 7-time, and I'm just throwing a dart at a wall right now, and I'm probably right. He's like 7-time world champion or whatever. It's like Bret won the title out of nowhere at a house show from Flair in '92, and as the WWF fans, we were used to everything being done on pay-per-view and being told to us like an obvious story. And so having the world title out of nowhere, like it used to back when Vince's dad owned the territory, change hands on a house show, because that's all there was typically.
Sure.
To see Bret just win it at a house show, and me tune into Superstars of Wrestling one week going, oh, this just happened, in the tour of Canada last week, Bret Hart beat Ric Flair. I'm like, excuse me? I was like, how did that happen? Like,
why did I not see that?
Why did that?
Bret. Yeah, I love Bret as Intercontinental Champion, but when I saw that, I turned against Bret, because I was like, this is not right. This is not. And we went as friends, all of us, went to LA Sports Arena house shows all throughout '92, And we watched the crowd decline from the beginning of 92 to the end of 92. I specifically remember a house show where Brett defended the WWF Championship. I think it was like November of 92 against Rick the Model Martel. And out of a 15,000 seat LA Sports Arena, 5,000 were in the crowd.
Whoa.
And we were just realizing like, it's dying. Like it's almost over. We thought like this bad shit's going to happen, you know, like we had no idea the vision that Vince had, you know, because we were so young at the time. But I distinctly remember that down period. So when they put the title on Brett, I turned on him because I was a Hogan guy. And even though I was too young and I wasn't smart enough to the business to realize that he was done and I just couldn't admit it.
Sure.
It was harder to swallow the pill of Bret Hart. But then after he got through with that, they tried Hogan again at the beginning of 93. That flopped. And then Vince finally built Bret properly to defeat Yokozuna at WrestleMania 10 in 1994. And that was the proper crowning. I wish that was Bret's first title win. Because
that would have been a lot better. It was an awkward transition.
Yeah.
And
to say the least.
But Bret's contribution, when you really look back, like I think Joe said it the best too. You look back on Bret now, and I'm like, every match he fucking did was not bad. Every match that Bret did was like, God damn, he was good. God damn, he was good.
You're hard pressed
to
find
watch
something.
Everything. You're like, Jesus. Yeah. From his footwork to his movement to his selling, Bret Hart was
making anybody look good that he was in there with.
He's a master class, man. Like Bret Hart is one of the best wrestlers I've ever seen in the ring. End of story.
Yeah.
Like he was that good. He was really that good.
Yeah, and it's almost unfair to kind of like put them, you know, it's almost unfair to compare Bret Hart with Hulk Hogan because you are in a down period. You are like, it's just, it's a dip. It's just naturally what happens in any market, whether it's a stock market or the movie market or whatever.
To your point, Joe, it's never going to get that low again because they can save it with great technical work on a regular basis. There's so much talent now, and it's so structured now that it'll never be that low again in the realm of getting people in seats. WrestleMania is always going to sell out. It'll never be that way again. So it's like the lowest point in wrestling, and it'll never change.
Well, I think
because it's so
I think that's
now.
what they were trying to do at the time. It was that like, let's not let it drop. Let's put at least good wrestling out there.
Yeah.
And see, and hopefully that saves it a little bit.
You talked about Shawn Michaels quite a bit, so we'll jump into that. Once Marty Jannetty went through the barbershop window, we had a star in our hands. We all knew that. Michaels quickly captured the Intercontinental Championship and basically owned that title through 1993. At WrestleMania 10, he made history by competing in a ladder match versus Razor Ramon. Some people will talk about it's the first ladder match. We all know that's not true, but it's really the first ladder match we saw on a main stage that would change the wrestling landscape forever. And inspired an entire generation of wrestlers that came after that. We talk about Shawn Michaels. I was literally, somebody popped off. Craig said goodbye, guys.
Still here, Craig.
It's all good.
R.I.P.
Yeah, we'll see if he's back. I don't think he's even back.
He's not.
But we talk about this ladder match and how many people get into it. And I was gonna give a hard time to Jess about Shawn Michaels' dumb face behind him because it drives me crazy. But
read the next person, and then we'll cover them both because
there you go. We'll talk about Diesel, who's a big part of this change. No. I'm sorry. Oh, Razor Ramon. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I got befuddled when I saw the screens change, and I'm messing up. So Razor Ramon. So Ramon was lucky enough to enter the WWF in late 1992 when some of the mega stars were still around: Flair, Savage, and Warrior. After they had left, he was turned face in the summer of 1993 and never looked back. Also participating in the ladder match at WrestleMania 10 with Shawn Michaels, Ramon redefined what it was meant to work as a big man. He set an IC title record with the most title reigns and owned that title for almost 2 years. I think he was the first one as a 4-time Intercontinental Champion, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, and it's weird because this, a lot of people kind of cite some stuff that started happening in 96 and early 97 was the real separation of Bret and Shawn. Maybe in their personal relationship, but I think as far as like watching their work here, they instantly became separate here because Bret was crowned in the end of 92 and he was kind of trying to go for the top, thing. He was put against Yokozuna in 1994, WrestleMania 10. And, but I think Michaels was right behind him. and decided to form the clique in the back, and then, you know, kind of have his own clique back there, because I think Michaels was insecure, so he needed people like Hall and Diesel and Hunter in the back too. And even this was slightly before Hunter even came over, but he needed that comfort in the back. That's why Michaels, they hired Diesel Nash, because Michaels was watching WCW syndicated programming. It was something, one of their Sunday night shows.
He saw Vinny Vegas, right?
And he saw Vinny Vegas do a promo, and Michaels, I don't know if he was with someone or he called Vince right after, and he's like, dude, this Kevin Nash guy is really fucking big, so Vince will love him, but he's really funny. Like, he did this thing, he's like this gambler, he's this Vinny Vegas guy, and he really made me laugh. And so they started looking at Nash, and they're like, well, what do you want to do with him? He's like, bring him in, make him my bodyguard. We'll figure it out. I'll make him. And Michaels knew right away, like, that I need this guy. This guy's got something. And you can love him or hate him, but Kevin Nash is so great on the mic.
He has such, when he's Vinny Vegas.
It's weird. He's so downplayed, but yet he has a lot of charisma. Nash is never yelling ever. What?
No.
Promo can you ever remember Nash going, let me tell you something? Like, nothing ever like that. Nash was very witty,
calm, cool, and
quick, and he's a big motherfucker. He's legitly like, 6'10", almost 7 feet tall. And like, so Michaels like, get this guy in here. So the three of them, Ramon, Michaels, and Diesel, and I'll let you read on with Diesel later, but Michaels and Ramon started it first.
Michaels! Oh no! Wait a minute! I can't believe that Shawn Michaels has somehow eked out a victory over Razor Ramon.
Why does a classic match like this have to end?
By kind of getting Diesel just came in as the bodyguard in '93 and watched, and then you had this amazing ladder match WrestleMania 10, which started to define the new generation, along with Brett winning the world title that night and his amazing match with Owen earlier that night. It was just sort of like those four. You're like, holy shit. Like, if you liked wrestling in-ring work, WrestleMania 10, like those two matches, you're like, good God. Like,
it started to line up.
Yeah, it started to make total sense. And yeah, like they were such, Brett, Shawn, and Razor were like the early new generation stars. Diesel was actually in the Federation, but he was just kind of watching at that.
Shouting, here we go. Oh, no. Do something, Rick. Look at this Martel trying to
muscled him up.
And he muscled him up. He's right. Here it comes, ladies and gentlemen. There's almost no way out of this. Here comes the Razor's Edge.
Step to step.
We got a new champion. 1, 2, 3.
He's dead. Give him credit.
The bad guy comes from way down in the gutter. All the way to the top rung of the ladder.
I've got chills right now on the double spine.
I'm sick to my stomach. What an effort.
Watching at that point.
Yeah.
And then Dave, you can read on. Then Vince is like, well, I like Diesel. He's a big guy. I love
He's
him.
a big guy. He's like, he's huge.
He was quickly pushed.
There,
he was quickly pushed to the Intercontinental and the tag title reigns. But on November 26th of 1994, Diesel defeated Bob Backlund for the WWF World Championship at Madison Square Garden. Also, I think a house show, because the video you find,
you are correct.
It's not good
it was
video.
A house show.
And they got this really shitty firework display behind him when he wins it. It's so odd. It's the weirdest thing. Just go back and find it. You can find it.
Didn't they show it because I remember?
And by the way, not
then.
to cut you off, cuz, but didn't Vince learn the lesson by crowning Brett? Not to cut you off, but I did. But
not to cut you off, but like, shut the fuck up.
Whoa!
Didn't Vince learn the lesson by crowning Brett at a house show?
No, he did
and then
not.
He crowned Diesel at a fucking house show like 2 years later.
Yeah, right. Like, fuck.
What are we
it's
fucking
insane.
doing?
Yeah, it's insane.
Wake up.
Yeah.
With the hitman Bret Hart temporarily out of action, Big Daddy Cool, the ranked #1 contender, the bell rings, and Diesel, the 7-foot monster, seizes the opportunity. What a boot to the midsection, and then from there, Bob Backlund, jackknife to the canvas, Diesel, the cover, and in a record-setting 8 seconds, Diesel becomes the new World Wrestling Federation champion. The celebration was on, and Big Daddy Cool became the leader of the new World Wrestling Federation generation.
So a shocked crowd would watch as Vince attempted to unleash his new Hogan.
And now Dave's cutting
you
me
can
off.
take Hulk Hogan out of the WWF, but you can't
Go
take
ahead,
Hulk
Jess,
Hogan
go
out of
ahead.
Get
Vince
off the brown guy,
McMahon.
you know.
That's hilarious. I love that, Jess. Thank you for that. One of the last couple ones you have here. We
No,
have
you have to
Owen
read my
Hart.
line. So
still
sorry,
cut
before
me
you
off.
go, because I was very proud when I wrote that line. By the way,
I loved it. I
A
thought it was a
shock-
great line. Yeah, I just
A
said it,
shocked crowd watched as Vince attempted to unleash his new Hogan. You can take the Hulk Hogan out of the WWF, but you can't take the Hulk Hogan out of Vince McMahon. Which is
So you had to read it
super-
twice, or you just
Brother.
didn't read it? Okay.
Yes, no, because we were talking over you, so I wanted my genius to be.
Yeah,
No,
that's
you're talking
that's-
over
that's-
me.
That never fucking happens. Okay. We'll move on to Owen Hart.
Yep, there he goes. Cut me
Kind
off.
of an underrated person of the new generation.
Hold
I
on,
would say.
Dave. Before you go to Owen Hart,
Yeah.
I just wanted
Yeah,
to ask.
ask your question, Meltzer. Go ahead and ask it.
No, I just wanted to ask. Wasn't it originally on a episode of Superstars with Todd Pettengill where they showed the footage of Diesel beating Bob Backlund
Yes, yeah.
on the house show? Okay, I just wanted to make sure that's
love
where
how you
Yes,
said
and I want
Superstars
to say it
with
was
Todd
on,
Pettengill.
Yeah.
I think it was also on Raw. No, it had to have been Superstars. You're right.
I think it was Superstars.
I mean, Raw was around, but they that Survivor Series, which was Thanksgiving week. Then they had the house show, which was that Saturday, I think, at Madison Square Garden. So you're right.
Yeah.
I think it was either Raw or Superstars the next week where they showed it.
Yeah, you could be right though. It could have been Raw too, though.
I can't remember.
I can't remember now either. Well, see, I brought it up for
It was
nothing.
all
then.
part of
Go
the new
ahead, Dave.
generation package. They just threw it at you.
Go ahead,
Clean
Dave.
up the
Bring up
office.
the trash bags. I'm just kidding.
They threw it at you like monkey throwing poo poo.
Yep.
Right, Dave?
Either way.
I saw Joe just
Throw poo at the wall. Let's see what
Yep.
sticks.
see what sticks. The beginning of 1994 saw the Brothers of Hearts go after it. It was an amazing match at WrestleMania 10 where Owen cleanly pinned Brett in the opening match of it. Very much an underrated match. Very much stole the show. Very much gets into the storyline at the end of WrestleMania 10 when Bret Hart is champion and Owen Hart comes out like, I just beat you. Fantastic story. I don't know if it ever truly took off the way it was supposed to. But Owen clearly pinned him there. And we had this new heel that was made on a brother versus brother mentality.
What a cheap shot by Brett. Many individuals think that, as we stated before, Psycho Sid will bring a new dominance to the World Wrestling Federation title. Wait a minute. Rolling through that. Here we go. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Here comes the Bulldog. No, wait a minute. Look at that. That's Steve Austin. Bret Hart just got knocked out with that steel chair right in the back of the head. Where did he come from? Steve Austin all over Bret Hart. Look at this. He was raising hell.
They toured, meaning Owen and Brett, toured the country in house shows for the WWF World title during the summer of 1994. Owen was a WWF staple in the new generation era. Even through 97, Owen played a major part in getting the early face of Stone Cold over with WWF audiences and almost killed him in the process. That's my extra add to that.
All right.
Yeah, sorry about that.
And now my brother
No,
Owen's
and
dead.
so I wanted to add Owen in there as well.
You
too,
should.
because a lot of people, after Brett was properly
Savio.
crowned at WrestleMania 10 in 1994, he had a great feud with Owen. Their SummerSlam 94 cage match, they
Yeah.
were
It's
told-
awesome.
Yeah, a day before they went out, they were told, by the way, you can't bleed because we're going through this thing where no blood anymore.
Yeah, fuck
So-
off. We're bleeding.
Brett and Owen, if you go back and watch this cage match where Brett and Owen had to not bleed. So instead, Brett knew right away. He's like, well, so if we throw each other's face against the cage, everyone's going to expect us to bleed. So we're not going to do that. So they use the cage to leapfrog over each other, to block the other person. It doesn't even do me justice describing it. If I can find
You gotta
this
go back and
footage
watch it.
online, the
Yeah.
way they were like one guy would go scramble for the door, like crawling on his hands and knees, and the other guy would leapfrog over him, try to get to the door. That guy would pull him under him and leapfrog again. And they did this amazing spot where they're both trying to desperately get out of the cage. And it was one of the most innovative. It was actually the first 5-star American wrestling match that Meltzer gave.
Get out of here. Really?
I don't
Are
remember
you
how
sure?
many years. It was SummerSlam
Whatever.
94, their
Oh, yeah,
cage
yeah.
match. Whatever weight you want to put on his ratings.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know.
Well, it doesn't matter his
No,
ratings,
yeah.
but like the match itself, like
The match
it's a great
itself
match.
is innovative. It's in a cage match where they put him in and they, by the way, you can't bleed. Oh, okay. Like, so
What?
Brett and Owen were smart.
Put 'em in
enough
a
to be
cage
like,
and tell
well,
them they can't
then,
bleed.
yeah,
Just
we're not
leave
going to
them
ram each
alone.
other into the cage, because why would I, knowingly, if we can't bleed, why would I ram him in the cage? If I run him in the cage, people are going to be like, you should be bleeding right now. So they chose consciously to not use the cage as a weapon, just as confinement. And it's one of the most artful, well-worked cage matches
Wow.
without blood you'll ever see. And it,
Yeah.
and it got a 5-star review from Meltzer, the first American wrestling 5-star match in years that he had given. And again, not to put weight on his system, but just to show you that even the internet guys, or I mean, the internet wasn't really even around back here, but like even the hardcore dirt sheet guys were like, this match was fucking amazing. Like, this match
Like
was
my brother Owen.
brilliant. Yeah.
No, that's crazy. That's crazy. That the
So along with the ladder match, it helped define, 5 months later, this added new generation era that they were going into. Like, it was awesome. And Dave, you have one more guy.
one more
I think
guy.
we know who he is.
Do it.
huh?
Do it.
The
Do it.
Undertaker.
Jack and Cola. Do it.
Even
Do
though
it.
The Undertaker had started with the WWF in 1990, Taker was a huge part of the rebuilding process during that new generation era. He was allowed to step out of the dead man, no-sell persona and actually work a match. Also, while Vince was sorting out his main event picture, he emphasized more on his mid-card development and used Taker to fill that spot. The Undertaker, I don't know where you start. How we treated Undertaker was mean when we were
Well, we
younger.
didn't like that.
Damn
I
right it
put
was.
that purposely. I hated the dead man no sell gimmick. But
Hated
you like
it.
Hogan hulking
Hated
up,
it.
Jess. I know, but like,
No, but he hoked
No,
up.
but
the
I
entire
hated it.
match.
I thought I loved Mark Callis. I loved Mean Mark
Mean Mark,
Callis
yeah.
in as a
just a standard
Twin
heel in
Towers
WCW,
or whatever
right?
or whatever they were called.
skyscraper.
Skyscrapers.
Skyscrapers.
And by the way, he was
loved
an
them
original
as
Paul Heyman
skyscrapers.
guy. He
So
was
when
an
he came
original Paul
over
Heyman.
and it was like, oh, like this guy who I thought was kick ass is coming over and he's like, the Undertaker. That's
And this crabby
fucking
purple tie.
It's
And
fucking
cut up
stupid. Like what
sleeves
a
and-
fucking stupid idea. I mean, I hope I'm not the only person that thinks that.
No,
like
we-
that
dude,
was
we
like
all
thought
booed
that's
the
fucking
Undertaker on a
stupid
regular
idea.
basis.
Like when it came over, I mean, obviously, like they somehow made it work over the years, but like initially, I think it was pretty awful, right?
So,
It's-
but I didn't like it either. And then when he said this, like Brett even talked about it in his book, I guess. So when Brett won the title back from Diesel at Survivor Series 95. And Brett's first major title defense was at the Royal Rumble of 1996, only a month later, or a couple months later. And Vince is like, well, you got to take on The Undertaker. And we're going to have a schmoz where Michaels will come down, Owen will come down, but you and Taker are going to have a match. And I guess Taker made it a point to track Brett down. And he's like, Brett. And Taker was like a child. He was like, I'm so glad that I get to work with you. Like Vince told me I could actually work. I could work. And
Yeah,
so whatever
he
you
was
want
happy
to do,
about
whatever you want to do, I'll sell. I'll do whatever. No sitting up, no dead man gimmick or whatever. Like I get to work with you. And he said Undertaker was so excited that Brett finally said, let's go. And I do say that some of Brett and Undertaker's matches were the SummerSlam 97 match was
Their matches were good.
it's one of my favorite matches.
I love
end
their
of
matches.
story. Brett against Undertaker at SummerSlam 97. So well told.
97 though.
Yeah, well, 97, but in the beginning, they started here in early 95. He got to wrestle Undertaker. And
Yeah.
Undertaker was like, dude, thank you so much. Like, so it started here in this new generation era where Taker got to start to work. And
Yeah.
got to be a
Yeah.
wrestler when he
Yeah,
wanted
for
to.
sure.
And I cannot understate what I wrote. So Vince was like, look, I'm not going to put the title on you because that would be too obvious. I need to work on Brett and Sean and all those other guys and figure out what the new audience is going to like. So in the meantime, he put Undertaker on the mid card against Kama, IRS, King Kong Bundy, and aged King Kong Bundy, by the way. All those people that we were like, ugh. But Vince was like, listen, Undertaker is such an attraction that while I'm rebuilding my company and I'm rebuilding the structure, what does this new generation thing look like? I don't know.
Yeah.
While I work on Brett and Sean and that kind of tier of the
Taker
company and
was a
Diesel,
sure thing.
Taker's an automatic middle guy.
Yeah.
So even if I don't know what my main event's going to be, if I say Taker's on the card,
Everyone
people
wants
are going to be
watch
like, "Oh, I love Undertaker. I'll
You'll
be
get
there."
enough tickets
Like,
to get to the next
yeah,
place.
yes,
Yeah.
or you'll get enough pay-per-view buys before they figure out who Brett's going to face
Yeah.
or who Michael's going to face.
Yeah.
And so I cannot understate
It almost
how
didn't matter
much
who
that
they
Vince-
were.
Yeah.
That's where their relationship got amazing, I think. I mean, yeah, later he kept, but I think after Undertaker was so loyal, I mean, Undertaker, we don't even know how many conversations they had behind the closed doors that we'll never know. You want to know why? Because Undertaker's such a pro, he never talked about any of it. He never leaked it.
Nothing.
He stayed in character in
Stayed in
autograph
character,
signings.
yep.
Undertaker, yeah. So until he retired, Undertaker never broke character and talked.
Never
and did
once
interviews.
said anything about
Yeah.
nothing.
So how many conversations? There were probably 10-minute conversations. Hey Vince, it's Mark. Hey Mark, how you doing? Good. Hey, listen, WCW just called me right now. It's 1995. They want to bring me over. They're gonna offer me this, that, and this. Don't say anything else. How much are they gonna offer you? I'm gonna match it. I'll call the girl in the front office or the payroll, and you got it, no problem. And I guarantee you, that's how many times Undertaker would just call to keep him honest. Hey man, it's 97. NWO is really big right now. They called me. They want to bring me over.
Dude.
No, they're not. How much are they offering you?
Can
They're
you
offering me $2
imagine
million a
that
year.
if he would have joined NWO?
Yeah, tell me that like that Eric Bischoff
Over
never
Brett
made
and
that
over
phone
Brett
call
and over Sean,
to.
Undertaker was number one. I guarantee you. And financially,
I
wouldn't doubt it.
I guarantee you.
Can you imagine if Undertaker
sure.
joined the NWO, like back then?
Well, that's
It
what
would
I
have
mean.
been
Like,
like
That would have been
you can't
huge.
tell me that whenever he had breaks in his contract, and I don't remember what years, you know what I mean? Because again, he was so private. I don't know when his contract ever came up because nobody ever talked about it. Even the
Nobody
dirt sheets
knew.
couldn't report. Yeah, the dirt sheets even couldn't report on it because Taker and he was so loyal to Vince and he was so private with Vince. Nobody knew shit.
And
about
why
his
wouldn't he?
contract.
Like
Yeah.
that's also like
No, that's a good man.
Like an interesting thing of
He's a good man.
why wouldn't he be loyal? Like why wouldn't he just say like, you know what, like I'm not gonna say shit about nothing. You know,
Right.
like
And I'm going to go to Vince when I have any problems. Hey, WCW just
Yeah,
called
like-
me and they offered me
Well, Vince made him, basically.
Yeah,
they offered me
exactly,
$1
like-
million
like
downside and a
Vince
$3
offered me
million contract. Okay.
like $500,000 more than what you offered me. What are you gonna do?
It's like, I'll pay you.
Okay. that's
And Vince was
done.
loyal to Taker,
Yeah.
you know? Vince took care of Taker, so that's why, like Joe said, why
Yeah.
wouldn't you be loyal?
Why
And
wouldn't you be loyal?
I wanted to put him in this episode because a lot of people think
Well, he's
of
a big
him
part of
as
it.
like a 1990s guy, which he did debut then. And then, an Attitude Era guy and a later
Yeah, he
that
is.
guy. and,
He's all the
you know,
eras.
But like he's all the eras.
he's
but,
all
like,
eras.
He's all eras.
Vince
Yeah.
really, when you really think about that staple in the new generation era, Vince to know that his mid card was sewn up and he didn't have to worry about it, like was probably so much relief for him, so he could actually work on, is Diesel working, or should I put Brett back, or should I put Michaels there? I don't know. And but no matter what, you got to look at all the big pay-per-views going back. So WrestleMania 12, the big Iron Man match, right? Diesel versus Undertaker. It was done for him already. Like Vince is like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna put Kevin Nash in with Taker. Okay, Patterson, you want to do this hour bullshit? What do you want to do? Like, and it's just so he got to focus on it. Imagine if Vince didn't have a mid card support, and all
Yeah.
those years, he could put Kama against the Undertaker in the middle of an in your house pay per
You
view.
could put Giant Gonzalez against the Undertaker.
Yeah, really, and like let's experiment with Brett versus
Sorry, no
so-and-so.
offense. No offense.
Yeah.
Sorry, everybody.
We'll put Sean as the IC champion, and then we'll put Brett as a world champion. But my mid card, IRS, you're working Taker. Okay, like people love Taker, and so they
To
can
your
just throw
to
him
your
in there.
point though, that
you know.
the Taker streak, when you go down the list, it ain't all pretty.
No,
but he would do the work. He would do it.
You're right. But he would do the work, and like he held that middle of the card up that Vince didn't have to worry about. I cannot stress the value of him during the new generation era, where Vince was like, "Oh, I have this guy who's a big attraction, and I'm not going to put a world title on him, but I'm going to use him to hold me up and support me."
Joe, you're pointing at something. What,
I thought I was pointing at Cuz.
Right here.
So
I couldn't be sure what I pointed at, but like I thought I was pointing at something, but
So
Can't be
to
sure?
wrap it up, I
to wrap it up.
wanted to wrap it up.
let's wrap this shit up, baby.
To wrap it up, I just want to talk about the new generation era because I think a lot of people forget about it because it's easy to
Yeah.
remember the Rock and 80s. Then it's easy to remember the Attitude Era. Then it's easy to remember the Ruthless Aggression Era. And then the PG
But it's
era.
real
all
easy to
kinda
skip
defined.
over the this
Kind of glossed over
new
Saudi
generation
Arabia.
era.
Whoa.
So no,
really
you're right.
easy to
'Cause,
skip
I mean, there's a
over.
lot of. There
No,
was a
I'm
lot
just
of guys
messing.
in
I'm
there,
just actually
but-
messing.
But yeah, I just wanted to like bring up like the
You know,
big
the
5
Quang,
or
the
6 that
ninjas.
really, that the Quangs, then Quang the ninjas. And then Goldust came in during this time for
That's
sure,
true.
and
Yeah.
like they were
That's
playing
true.
around a lot, in 95, 96 with Goldust, and Hunter came in as Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and
The
like
Warrior.
but it took a while. The Warrior came back and tried again. There's a lot of stuff that came back in the new generation.
A lot of
era,
good
but,
stuff, actually.
like the Smoking
A
Guns,
lot of
which
failure.
a lot of people
Failure is
sleep on.
always an option.
Yeah, right.
Blackjacks.
So- No, that was later. Oh God, Blackjack.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they, and then Rocky Maivia came out in 96, which
that's
is
true.
technically
I mean,
part of the new
a
generation.
lot of people
era.
always want to talk about like the
Austin.
the
Oh yeah, of course.
the Attitude Era, this era, whatever, and it's like everything blends into each other. Like
Yeah.
everything one thing blends into the next, and
Yeah.
it's like what was awesome in the rockin' era
The
was
Yokozunas.
was stupid in the new generation. What was awesome in new generation was dumb in
The attitude.
the Attitude Era. So it's like,
Well, and you're right, because
you know,
too,
like-
I didn't put him in here, and I contemplated it, but Yokozuna was a big part of the new generation.
Absolutely.
Very big
that's a
Absolutely.
huge part.
That's what I'm saying.
I
We
mean,
had a
Bam Bam
heel
was
champion
too.
for
A lot of these
for a
guys.
year.
Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah,
You know,
Jeff Jarrett,
the,
yeah,
the
for sure.
WWF
Jake the Snake
never
was another
worked.
legend that helped other
The-
younger talent in the new generation.
Yeah, the WWF
lot
never
of
worked
guys.
with heels as champions
yeah.
for a long period of time. Like they would
well
transition.
done
That was
behind
about it.
Dave.
Yeah, well done was great.
Well done was with Harvey
I put that
Whippleman.
in
love
kind of
those,
as a
love
joke.
those fucking
Harvey Whippleman.
Speedos, baby.
That's right.
That's
you gotta love
childhood right
those.
there.
Yeah. Yeah, good stuff. For
Sonny?
audio fans, give us a listen on Apple, Spotify,
Oh,
SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and Google Podcasts, or watch our videos on YouTube at Our Wrestling
Mark Romero.
Channel. On social media, can you do us a solid and give us a follow on Instagram or Twitter at O.W.P 2019 or
Ludwig
at
Borga.
Facebook Meta at Our Wrestling Podcast. This is Dave, Jess, Joe, Cuz,
Ludwig
Sans
Borga.
Craig, mid step out with the
I
O.W.P.
can't believe that bitch left.
Signing off. Have a good one.